Sharon, are we ready to rock and roll on this? We so?
I am almost ready. 1 second.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'm also wanting just to make sure, I hope that I have everybody in attendance. 1 second, I have to turn this machine on. And Dina, you're going to get the recorder going on.
Yes, I am, and then I can go ahead and put up the agenda as well right now.
August 27th, 2020, Planning Commission meeting.
So welcome, everyone. I'd like to formally at this point welcome back Commissioner Tom Ferland from his sabbatical, where he's been for about the last year. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back.
Good.
Before we get, go ahead.
I was just going to say, good to be back too.
Before we get going, I'm going to read the public meeting script for opening a meeting. So I, Dustin Brusso, as chair of the Essex Planning Commission, find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Scott as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and pursuant to Addendum 6 to Executive Order 01-20 and Act 92, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. In accordance with Act 92, there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. However, in accordance with the temporary amendments to the open meeting law, I confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting via video conference with additional access offered through the telephone. We are using Microsoft Teams for this remote meeting. All members of the Planning Commission have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through Teams, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if desired, to participate in this meeting. Planning staff will provide instruction for public participation using Teams before the hearings are open. B, providing public notice of the instructions for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting, including how to access the meeting on Teams with a computer, smartphone, or regular telephone in our posted meeting agenda. Instructions have also been provided on the town website at www.essexvt.org/agenda center. Click on your government, then agendas and minutes, and navigate to the desired meeting date. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please use the chat feature within Teams, which is Alt-H, email, or call OISO at omakuku@essex.org or 802-878-1343. D, continuing the meeting if necessary. In the event the public is unable to access this meeting, it will be continued to a time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. So let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance of all PC members participating in the meeting.
David Raphael, present.
Next.
John Mankin, present.
Tom Furland here.
Ned.
Ned's here.
And Dustin's here. So we have 5 members in attendance this evening. And go ahead.
There are some people that have telephone numbers that I have missed. So
Okay.
if I can read the names off that I have, and if those that I haven't listed can state their name so that we can get you down as being present. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Or?
Go for it, Sharon, please.
So, and I apologize in advance for names. If I'm pronouncing them wrong, I might just give an address. James Festa, M. Ashqua, 2 Windridge Road, Paul O'Leary, Channel 17, Kelsey Carpenter, Ross Miller, Brian Birch, Brian Marcotte, John Zimmerman, Robert Carpenter, Evan Cross, Andy Strichter, Ken and Amy Kieft, Catherine Lange, 30 Winter Lane Circle, Diane Wood, Kay Watson, but I need Kay Watson's address. So Kay, Kay Watson, if you can unmute yourself and tell me your address. And while we're waiting for her to do that, if I haven't called out your name, can you unmute yourself and state your name and address?
I'm not going to be happy the rest of the evening.
This is Joe and Lisa Auger, 7 Windridge Road.
Thank you.
Stephen and Luann Donnelly, 14 Windridge Road.
Nancy Pratt, 54 Forest Road.
Eric and Lydia Rumbaugh, 16 Timberlane Drive.
Thank you.
Tom and Sarah Williams, 78 Stonebrook Circle.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I will remind everybody that when you're not talking, if you hit your mute button, and you can also shut off your camera if you so desire. And when you're speaking, if you want to turn it on, feel free to do that as well. Thank you.
Bring the agenda up
And
on my
87.
system.
Public affairs.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. All right. Before we get going, I want to ask to everyone to, I'm going to administer the oath. And if you do choose to speak later and you're not, let me rephrase this. How are we going to know that? By acknowledging the oath audibly after I present it, the expectation is, or the understanding is, that you will be adhering to that oath. So for anyone that will be presenting any testimony this evening at any point during the meeting, do you swear that any testimony you present will be truthful to the best of your abilities?
I do.
I do.
Yes, I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
And then the only thing I would say is when people come on, if they can, at some point, let me know their name and address so that we can put you on the record as attending. Thank you.
And we will try to monitor the raised hands during the public meeting portion of this. So it's always a little challenging to keep the flow going well. So we want to make sure everyone has a chance to be heard.
And I should also tell you, on your toolbar, next to your camera, your microphone, there's a little arrow button. Then there's 3 dots. If you click that, it has raise your hand. I think it's the 4th one down. You do have to remember to go and shut it off if you have raised your hand and you have already spoken. And this way the chair can acknowledge that you are looking to discuss.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. So the first item on our agenda.
Excuse me. How
Yes?
do dial-in members raise their hand?
We'll have to work with you on that. There isn't, obviously, if you're dialing in, there's no opportunity to collect the thing. But if you, during public hearing portion, wait for an opportune time and just let us know that you'd like to speak, and we'll get you into the flow as best we can.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll work on this, folks. Everybody should be able to get in. First item on our agenda is public comments, and this is an opportunity for folks to provide commentary to us for items that are not on the agenda. If you have things you want to share with us, this is the time. I think, Sharon, this might be the time to bring in John's comments. Somebody can mute, please. Whoever's got the background noise, please mute. Or do you want to wait until
I think probably when we come to the application, Dina can then pull it up at that time.
Okay, that works.
Great. And that one was for the other business?
Correct. No, that was for the item 3.
Item 3, very good. Okay.
So does anyone have any public comment they wish to offer for items that are not on the agenda? I'm keeping track of the hands, so. All right, hearing none, we'll move on.
Okay, I'm just writing down and meeting somebody. So again, a reminder to everybody to hit your mic, to mute your mic, and when the time comes for the chair to open the public hearing is when you will unmute and talk again. So.
And you just, Sharon, you just said you admitted someone?
I did. I've admitted 2 phone numbers. So, and here we go. There's been a number of people who have signed on again, but the 2 phone numbers I have is 879-2633. If you could identify your name, unmute.
John Sama and Lance Ledoux at 26 Windridge.
26 Windridge. Thank you. And John, and I have another phone number, 238-3604.
That is Peter Edelman.
Here, hi. And then I do have one more number, 878-9853.
So we've got some background noise, folks. So again, if you're not speaking, could you make sure that you mute?
That's Joe and Lisa Ange,
And what's your address, please?
7 Windridge.
So, thank you.
So for you folks that Sharon just called out and acknowledged, I'm going to re-administer the oath so we don't have to try to remember later. Do you swear that any testimony you present this evening will be truthful to the best of your abilities?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm just admitting another. So maybe Dustin.
I tell you what.
Yeah.
So let's Sharon, why don't you reach out to folks in the chat window?
Okay.
Actually, if they're coming in by phone, that won't work. So let's get them now.
I think why don't we re-administer prior to opening the public hearing?
That sounds reasonable.
Okay. Great.
Commissioners okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
John and Leah are listening to this presentation.
I'm sorry, John and who?
Yeah.
What's your address?
Okay.
He's not talking to you.
Oh.
So John, are you going to be, are you listening? Are you online and listening for us with us?
Yep.
Okay, John, what is your address, John?
That's 26 Windridge.
Okay, thanks. And just a reminder that because you don't have a mute button, to just be mindful of what we can hear. Very good. So I think we're ready to go on.
All right, folks. Let's. The first item on our agenda this evening is a sketch subdivision public hearing for Pinewood Manor Incorporated. This is a proposal for a 49-unit single-family PUD-R on a 115-acre lot located at 18 and 30 Timber Lane Drive in the R2 district. Staff, OISO, Sharon, who is presenting on this evening?
So I will speak to this, and OISO will chime in if she needs to.
Okay.
My name is Sharon Kelly. I'm the zoning administrator, and Darren Schibler is the planner who prepared the report. However, he was unable to attend the meeting. So my comments, as are stated in the warning, Pinewood is proposing the next phase of development on its master plan. The difference between the previous approvals is that Phase I, the proposed, is being proposed as a PUD, a planned unit development, and the previous development approvals were approved as a conventional subdivision. The staff report, I think, this is sketch, so I think it speaks for itself. However, I'll call out a few things. I'm not sure if a new street name will be needed unless the Timber Lane Drive will be extended, and that's something we can work at the next stage of review. As this is a subdivision, it requires 3 stages: sketch review, preliminary review, and final review. So you will have more opportunity to comment as this application goes forward. I believe this application will require an Act 250 approval. The issues to resolve are noted on lines 33 to 36 on the staff report, which speaks to the path. And section H had a condition that wanted it investigated to see if it was feasible to develop a non-motorized multi-use trail on Vermont 289. Recreation impact fees will be required of this project if it receives final approval. And Sometimes there is some negotiation where if a path is required and installed, the Planning Commission does have the authority to accept that in lieu of the recreation impact fees. That will come at the next step, I would say. Page 5, section E calls out why this application doesn't really fit the mold of a PUD requirement. If the applicant chooses to go back to a conventional review, the Planning Commission should decide if they want to see this as a new sketch review or allow them to proceed to preliminary as a conventional, again, should they decide to go that way. Lastly, I would suggest, if approved, we delete conditions 3 and 4, as 3 is kind of a repeat of number 1, and 4 should be a final plan approval condition and not meant for sketch. And I think that's all I have for this. It's sketch, so I'll rely on the engineers to take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Just a reminder for anyone listening, sketch plan is the very first level of review, and it is not where plans are not finalized at this point. This is where we look at issues and start determining whether or not the general ideas of the plan is good to move forward. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
Not me.
So I have one. Sharon, there's a couple comments in here about Public Works needing some additional infrastructure. Any challenges with any of that? And that
I
was
think at sketch review, I didn't.
line 114
Thank you. Just going in.
and 111.
Yes, these are issues that that are going to have to be resolved. It looks like the way it's written, it's Public Works is requiring this. So I guess I would maybe save that question and ask it of the engineer.
Okay.
I don't know how much Darren has spoke with them since the staff report went out, so it might already be a determined thing, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Thank you. Dave, any issues, any questions?
No, I'm good right now. Thanks, Dustin.
Okay. Ned?
No, not at the moment.
All right. Tom?
All set for now.
John?
Ditto. All set for now.
So now let's roll to the applicant. And who's going to be presenting for them?
Good evening. Paul O'Leary with O'Leary Burke Civil Associates will start off.
Welcome. So, Paul,
so we're looking at, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you could make sure, give a brief overview, but if you could make sure that you call out any items that either you disagree with the staff or items that are still to be worked out, that'll help us move through this.
I'll do that. So this is the next phase of Pinewood. It's labeled Section I, which obviously means there's been an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. I've been involved with Pinewood with sections G and H, and now I. There'll be one more phase that will follow after this, and that will be the extension of Rustic Drive. So the goal of this phase, as shown on the master plan that was last approved, is to connect Timber Lane with Stonebrook Circle. So the original master plan actually showed 2 different roads back here. Since we were back in for the last time, we agreed with the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department to establish a buffer between the lots and the Cirque Highway. You can see that that's labeled on the proposed sketch plan. That significantly reduced the area that we had remaining for this phase, and so has significantly reduced the number of lots. One of the few last remaining conventional subdivisions, as the Planning Commission is very aware, most all subdivisions or most projects that have been approved lately are PUDs or multi-family housing. So this proposal would add 49 single-family lots to the housing stock in Essex. We are at sketch plan. There hasn't been a lot of work gone into this plan. We still have to identify wetlands, which will certainly have an impact on the lot layout and the road layout. We have yet to do any stormwater design, which will likely change the project. We've only done a rudimentary look at cuts and fills and road grades. So basically this is just an initial guess, and we've got a long way to go before we get done with a preliminary plan. I'm going to tick down through some of the items in the staff report just to maybe get a little clarification. The biggest reason that we proposed this to be a PUD instead of a conventional subdivision has to do with the 40-foot front yard setback requirement in the subdivision regs. 40 feet, as we know today, is a long way back to set houses, uses up a lot of space, a lot of land, creates a lot of additional impervious surfaces. In the last section, section H, we have a number of houses that were closer than 40 feet. And to accomplish that, with each lot, we had to go to the zoning board and request a variance of the setback. Under your regulations, under the PUD regulations, you're allowed to reduce that front yard setback to 20 feet. And that's really what we're looking for, is some flexibility on the setbacks. Now, your subdivision regs do allow you to waive some of the setback requirements in the regulations, and that's another avenue that we could pursue with the board. Either way, whether we go as a PUD or a conventional subdivision, the sketch plan that you see in front of you would remain essentially the same. Looking at the staff notes, around line item 3334, it talks about Section H approval included a condition that the next phase analyze the feasibility of a non-motorized multi-use trail crossing of Vermont 289 as shown on the approved master plan. Now, there was a report done by Lamro and Dickinson, and we did provide a copy of that to Darren. And the report recommended that it be a bridge crossing the Cirque Highway, if that ever happens, and it would happen down on Winter Lane Circle, which is essentially south of this proposed section of Pinewood. So the report was done recommending crossing in a different location than where this project is. And looking at this project, you can see a crossing would be tough. Not only do you have the Cirque Highway to cross, but you have all the Burke that you'd have to find a way across at the same time. Moving on to some of the other big items. Excuse me. There's a number of items under stormwater and erosion control. I'm on page 3, line items 96 to 102. These were comments that I believe came from Public Works. They're a little ahead of the game where we haven't done any stormwater design whatsoever and haven't really looked at where these lots and this impervious surface as part of this phase might discharge. So we'll certainly take their comments in consideration as we go forward, but a little premature at this point in time. Moving on to page 4, line items 107 through 112. Public Works is not happy with the 2 cul-de-sacs that are on the top left-hand corner of your plan. Essentially, if you can read the topo map, between those 2 cul-de-sacs is a very big ridge. In order for us to put a street through that ridge, it would be around a 50-foot cut to get through there. So it's really not feasible for us to build a road through there. Plus, there's a Class 2 wetland there that it's very unlikely that we'll receive permission from the state to cross that. Again, as we go a little bit further, we'll be refining the plans a little bit more. We will talk with Public Works about what some of our options are about maybe connecting those 2 or maybe modifying the cul-de-sacs or eliminating one of the cul-de-sacs. So something that we will look at as we go forward. Still on page 4, line items 130 to 133, it talks about a condition of the Section H approval to evaluate the feasibility of a trail connection under the Cirque Highway through the proposed conservation buffer prior to future development. So I think, Section H approval was back in 2002, and at that point in time, there was an active committee looking at a way to cross the Cirque Highway. I think since then that has pretty much died a slow death. I don't think that's been looked at in 5, 6, 8 years. Certainly a difficult crossing. You've got the wildlife section to get across. You've got a river corridor. You've got Alderbrook. And then you've got to navigate somehow under the circumferential highway. I don't think there's any plans on the other side of the Cirque, for a connection at this point in time. So I just think that that's a condition that doesn't make any sense, and it would be an exercise that would be futile. Let's see what else I have. I think that's about it. Other, than repeating the comment on a PUD versus a subdivision, we have reviewed the conditions of approval. We are fine with them as written. We're also fine with the changes as Sharon Kelly proposed. So I'll gladly take any questions you might have.
Thanks, Paul. Commissioners, any additional questions or thoughts at this point in time? Any questions for Paul?
I have one question. The route under the circumferential highway, there's that underpass. It's like 15 feet high and has a ledge for a decking. Where is that in relation to this development?
That's a good question. I don't know, Tom, offhand to tell you exactly where it is.
Okay.
So for folks in the audience, I see that we've got some person with a hand raised, but at this point, we haven't opened the public hearing, so just bear with us. I'm going to go down around the horn again. Ned, what are your thoughts at this stage?
I guess my only question would be for Paul. Is the total number of lots fixed in stone, or, and could it be more or less when you get around to looking at grades and stuff? Because 19 through 25 there look like you're building on the side of a mountain, and you're going to be a lot of blasting and everything else to find anything level to build on there. If I guess my thought would be that if some of that becomes unbuildable, then and only then would you possibly really want to go to the PUD. If it was to be built as such, I think it should be a subdivision. But if you still want to get that number of units, I think in my opinion, the best way would be the PUD. That's all. Just a comment.
Yes, I would agree, Ned, that certainly we expect going forward that we will lose lots. There isn't anything magic about the number 49. That's just what we fit on this plan. It is possible that if we lose enough lots, we may decide to look at some carriage homes or possibly some duplexes within the project, and then we certainly would go to a PUD style approval.
Okay, thank you.
All right. John Bengen.
I don't have any questions yet.
That's not mute.
Okay. David.
Ditto.
And Tom, you've already asked that. Any other additional questions?
Nope, I'm all set.
All right. So at this point, I would look for a motion to open the public hearing. And before we do that, folks, before we do that, I want to remind folks in the audience that you do need to be recognized before you speak. If you're on the phone, again, look for a moment in the break to let folks know that you need to speak. I would also ask that if you need to echo the comments that have been made before you, please just let us know that you're dittoing what someone else has already said and not go through it and not repeat the same thing over again, but make sure that you are on record that you are in agreement with statements that have already been made. So with that, I would take a motion to open the public hearing.
Dusty, just other people have arrived again, so don't forget to reinstitute the.
Good point. Okay, so thanks, Sharon.
I'll move we open the public hearing.
Moved by Ned, seconded by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So we're going to re-administer the oath for folks who were not here at the beginning. And again, if you could just echo back your agreement with the oath.
And also,
So for
Dusty, also I have a phone number too, so if people are dialing in on a phone, and could they give their name and address as well?
When they speak.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if we want them on just for attendance, even if they don't speak, if they want to capture their name as being present, we should get their names.
Okay, so let's do this. I'll issue the oath, and for anyone, we'll then take a pause, and for anyone who has not provided your name and address to Sharon, you do so at that point. So for those in attendance who have not taken the oath at this point, do you swear that any testimony you present will be truthful to the best of your abilities?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 Thank you. And now for any of those who have not as of yet provided name and address to Sharon, can you do so at this point?
This is Mike for Ridge. Sorry, I think I clicked on somebody. This is Mike Trick, 4 Ridge Road.
4 Ridge Road?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Sharon, Jim Berniger, 20 Carmichael Street.
Hi, Jim. Thank you.
Alex.
Jenny Yoon. Oh.
Sorry, I've got Jenny Yoon.
At 28 Stonebrook Circle.
Thank you. And somebody else had started to speak. Alex, maybe?
Yeah, Alex Halpern, Freeman Architects, 81 Maple Street, Burlington.
Thank you.
We have the phone.
Debbie and Peter Thomas, 79 Stonebrook Circle.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Rita Browning, 19 Rustic Drive.
I'm sorry, 19 what drive?
Rustic Drive.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, you said your name was Debbie?
No, Rita.
Oh, sorry, Rita.
Sarah Desolith, 7 Raymond Drive.
Thank you, Sarah.
Eric and Nicole Fenton, 3 Windridge Road.
I'm on the meeting.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, because I can't get on the computer.
39 Stonebrook Circle.
I'm sorry, I got the address, but I didn't get the name.
Dan Petherbridge.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask a favor of any of the folks that are online, if you on the phone, if you could do your best to mute the audio coming in until you need to speak. It would be helpful to everyone on the call. Understanding that it can be challenging, but all right. With that, again, we're going to open the public hearing, and Robert Carpenter, your hand was up first.
Hi, I'm actually Kelsey Carpenter on my husband's Microsoft. I live in Pinewood, and just in terms of the bridge across the Cirque, I actually think that's a good idea and shouldn't be dead on arrival, especially because right now there is a well-trafficked and popular path behind the middle school. If there was a path that connected those two links, that would actually connect to parts of Essex that are otherwise very difficult to get to. I know that I have a young family, and I'd be really excited for the opportunity to be able to access the middle school, Foster Road, Sand Hill Park, all of those things are currently really difficult to get to on foot or by bike. And a non-motorized path, I think, would be excellent. It would also go a long way towards making people feel better about continually expanding the neighborhood. My main concern about this expansion is the increase in traffic as well as public works resources and how that is going to come into play. Currently, Pinewood only has 2 entrances, and one in particular is at the bottom of a steep hill with a curve, which is already somewhat tricky to navigate both in the winter and when people come flying up it. It's right by our community pool, and then of course there are homes right along those thoroughfares, and I'm concerned about the impact of potentially 100 or more cars on that.
Thank you. And Kelsey, if you can put your hand down as well. Excellent. Is there anyone else that would like to offer comment?
I would like to. This is Robert Klupa, 30 Winter Lane Circle. I would like to ditto what Kelsey just said about the traffic concerns. We live at the intersection of Raymond Drive, Winter Lane Circle, and I feel that with the, I'll call it Timber Lane Drive extension, we're going to see a lot more traffic on Winter Lane Circle and Raymond Drive. And that intersection has always been challenging, and that people roll through the stop sign. My wife and I have had numerous misses there. And I think as part of this, we might want to revisit the traffic pattern through there, potentially maybe putting stop signs on Winter Lane Circle and not Raymond Drive, or maybe turning it into a 3-way.
Okay. Thank you. Going down the list, Evan Cross. Your hand is raised.
Evan Cross, 12 Windridge Road. I'll ditto that as well. I'm concerned about the traffic.
Thank you. James Festa. Evan, if you could put your hand down as well.
It's James from 15 Timber Lane. And my concern is similar to the traffic concern. The intersection that is going to be created by Timber Lane and the Timber Lane extension and Windridge, I'd like to see a 3-way stop there. And maybe this is too early in the process to put that out, but I do want to go on record that the new road is going to come around a bend and go uphill as it approaches that Timber Lane and Windridge bend. Now it's going to become a 3-way intersection if it goes forward, and I'd like to see a 3-way stop there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Debbie Thomas.
Hi. My main concern is about the impact on wildlife in that area, especially considering that most of the Stonebrook Circle and Evergreen has very recently been developed. There's a lot of pressure on wildlife for habitat that's been lost there, and I'm concerned about this much more habitat and what that will mean to local wildlife.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Tom Williams.
So I have 2. I'll address them in order here. The first one is, just the primary question is why Stonebrook Circle is not going to be a circle. I mean, obviously it was called Stonebrook Circle for a reason. When we bought on Stonebrook, we were told the plans to, connect the roads and turn it into a large circle made sense considering the name. I did hear the gentleman earlier say about the wetlands and the ridge. But I'm just wondering, did the wetlands and the ridge show up 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or have they been there for a very long time, including when the original plans were laid out to turn Stonebrook into an actual circle? So I'm just curious what the compelling reason is to deviate from a plan that's been communicated to a community who's bought based on that information to turn it into something very different. So that's my first one. The second one is around the traffic as well. There have been some traffic monitors on some of the roads. Have those traffic monitors been placed in order to get an idea of traffic for this expansion.
Okay.
So that was actually a question real quick, because I had a further comment. Because
go ahead. We're gonna hold your questions, and I'll include the applicant.
Okay. So my statement on this one then is, if we are trying to measure the traffic using those traffic monitors during a COVID pandemic, the data won't be reliable. The traffic, is completely unpredictable with COVID. I myself have been working from home for months and months and months, as have most of my colleagues. So the commuting traffic and everything is completely different during the COVID pandemic than it will be during normal times when we get back to normal times. And I would argue that it's nearly impossible to actually predict what the traffic flow would be using those monitors.
I'm going to continue to get questions before I go back to the applicant. So folks, if you have questions, you understand that I'm not going to stop at this point. So I'd like to get a lot of these questions out, and then we'll re-engage and see if we can get some answers. Nicole Louis-Fenton. How close did I come with pronunciation?
Pretty close, but I'm not her. This is it's my wife. Lawillier is how you did it. So
okay.
Anyway, so this is Eric Fenton, 3 Windridge Road. Thank you for your time. I'd like to echo traffic as well as wildlife. But one other concern that I have as someone that's walked on that path quite a bit is that the erosion of that road. They have attempted to rebuild that road about 5 times since I've been here. And my concern is, how do you address that with that road that hasn't been able to be achieved just by dirt, let alone put an actual road on top? It'll be kind of a maintenance nightmare.
Okay.
Robert Klupa, I would like to ditto that. That was the other question that I had. I also walk on that path, and I see that they've, about every 6 months fill it in with tree stumps and rocks to keep it from washing down the road. As a former municipal employee, I know that, after a certain period of time, the town adopts these roads and infrastructure and takes responsibility for maintaining them. I know that last summer, I believe, Windridge, they replaced a culvert there, which I assume the town paid for. And that sidewalk is still kind of falling off the side of the hill there. Is there any way to keep the developer responsible for, what might happen a few years down the road if this road were to start to wash away?
Okay. Put that on our list to circle back.
Robert, could I didn't get your last name. Could I have your address? That might be easier.
30 Winter Lane Circle.
Thank you. Excuse me, Dusty. We've had more people attend as well.
Okay. So folks, if I'm not going to stop and redo the oath right now, but if you were not here when I've administered the oath, before you speak, please acknowledge that any statement you're going to be is truthful to the best of your abilities. Before I go to, let's see, Sarah, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, my name's Sarah Desuith. I'm at 7 Raymond Drive, and I did do the oath earlier. I have a few concerns that have been mentioned, but I wanted to add a few more parts to them. Concerned about the traffic, as someone mentioned that there are only 2 entrances and exits to our neighborhood. The one of them that was mentioned was on a steep hill, and the other one is through a condo development where the street is really tight and cars are often parked on the road, so only one car can go through in one direction at a time most of the time. Oh, what was that?
Keep going. I think it was just background noise.
I'm also concerned about the wildlife. I mean, we see deer, we see other wildlife in the neighborhood, and as was mentioned before, that this is really going to push it out completely from that area because they won't be allowed to be in there with this development. And I also think just in terms of recreation for us as a neighborhood that many of us do use that trail for walking, which we really appreciate, or, being kind of back there in that area. And there aren't a lot of options for us. We don't have a bike path, taking us over to the other side of the cirque, that kind of stuff. So some of us do depend on that for recreation. And with an increase in traffic, that's going to be really tricky with our kiddos. So Those are some of my comments and concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone who's on the phone have a comment they'd like to offer? I see we've got quite a few phone folks, and I don't want to lose sight of you.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Kalina Leshishin, 76 Stonebrook, and I heard when the oath was administered. I just want to detail what Tom Williams said. We were also at that time purchasing this home and this land at a time when this was introduced as being a circle. So it is confusing to hear that this information is new and it's coming up just now when there were all these preliminary plans being made for years. So from our position, it also is a little bit confusing and disturbing as why this cannot happen to be completed as a circle as it was planned initially. And, it is going to create a completely different picture of this neighborhood. So, yes, this is also a concern for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the phone?
Yeah, this is Mike Trick. I had a couple of comments. One is I want to echo Ms. Carpenter's statement that the right place to put a crossover is about midway between River Road and the overpass, which would be around about where the middle school comes down to where the circ is. So I think that's a much better place to put the crossover. And to answer the question that comes earlier, I think that's about a half a mile from the overpass. You're quite a distance as you go into Lang Farm down that recreation path from to the outlets at Essex or whatever they call it now, the Essex Experience, pardon me. So that's about the distance to the overpass. I'd also like to say that I think the Marcotts, Brian and Bob Marcotte, did a fantastic job with the neighborhood. I love the way they developed it and using 1 acre lots and a lot of frontage for each house. And I think it really is a beautiful neighborhood. I'm a little concerned about the size of the lots. It looks like some of them are 1 acre lots, but the frontage is much smaller. It looks like the houses are going to be much closer together than in the rest of the neighborhood. And there are some really tiny lots in there that I think are out of character with our neighborhood. And would like to just emphasize that I'd like to see big lots and separate houses like we have today.
Okay, thank you.
And could I have your address? I'm sorry, Mike.
This is Mike Trick at 4 Ridge Road.
4 Ridge, thank you.
Sarah, did you have another question? Your hand is still raised.
Nope, sorry, I just never put it down.
This
All
is
right.
Ken Taft. If I could jump in, I had similar comments to Mike. I can't seem to find the hand icon to raise my hand. I'm on a Mac. Anyway, I'm at 9 Windridge Road, Ken Taft, and my wife Amy's here as well. I wanted to chime in that some of the comments you already heard, but I had this thought as well, that I think also a very appropriate place to provide access to the other side of the circ is to the school property. That jumped in my head right away. It just makes a ton of sense that this neighborhood could get there by walking or bike. So I wanted to put that in. And I'm glad Mike mentioned the way the lots are configured. I had the same first thought when I saw the plan that, boy, they seem like they're very narrow and deep. And perhaps it's the topography that's causing that, but I kind of had the same concern. Is it going to be provide the same character to the neighborhood? And I think that's it for my input. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to offer comment?
Yes, this is Steve Donnelly at 14 Windridge, and I would like to ditto what Ken just said, as well as Mr. Trick. We've been 14 years in this neighborhood. We love the neighborhood, and our concern is to continue the buffer between the homes side to side, as well as providing some buffer on the frontage. I think that adds great character to the neighborhood, and we'd like to see that continued as much as possible. And second, also, the bridge over the Cirque. About 10 years ago, I reviewed the Essex Community Bike Path Walkway Plan, and I saw that many years ago. I was excited to see it. I'm sorry it's not there today, and I really think that should be reviewed and pushed forward. I think it would add value to our neighborhood, having a foot bike path over the Cirque. And I agree with the location, and it was also, again, on that plan from about a decade ago, and it goes right into the Essex Middle School property. A great way for kids to walk or bike to school from Lang Farm as well as from our neighborhood. The way it showed, it was coming from the Lang Farm cut through, almost straight shot toward the Cirque, so nowhere near Winter Lane. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nancy Pratt, you were, I just checked the meeting chat list and I see that you've been trying to get our attention.
Okay. Yeah, this is Nancy Pratt, 54 Forest. I want to thank Steve Austin at 6 Heatherbush for presenting a couple questions for me. Too busy tonight. One of them relates to the impact to the current roads by the heavy machinery that will be going back and forth in this over several years to develop this project. And is that something that's being factored into the developer's cost, or is it expected to be borne by the taxpayers? That's one question. The other question is, as you bring in sewer, I assume that will be provided as opposed to septic systems for the new area. Is there going to be an option for adjoining properties like on Timber Lane or Windridge where they don't currently have sewer options? Will that option be extended to the adjoining older properties?
Okay, I've noted that. Any other questions? Okay.
This is John Bama from 26 Windridge.
Hey, hang on a second, John. I had somebody in front of you first, if it's okay. Eric Rumbaugh?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Steve and Nancy beat me to my question on the sewer. So we're at 16 Timber Lane, right adjacent, and we were also wondering whether that would be extended to existing properties. I also wanted to ditto some of the comments about, especially the overpass and some of the trail ideas being revisited. We think that's valuable, especially given the current use of that trail, which, as someone mentioned earlier, is pretty recreational. To expand some of that and have some alternative options as the neighborhood expands would be encouraging, especially for those with young families and kids. And then just ditto a few of the other comments about the lot size and character. I think that's something that we should continue to visit as these planning meetings go on. Thank you.
John, I think it was a John that started to speak.
Yep, John from 26 Windridge. Just what related to the construction traffic, wanting to think about trying to balance that out, hoping that it doesn't all shift to that end of Windridge, but maybe some of the construction traffic that has been coming from Windridge onto Stonebrook will maybe disappear a little bit. That's mostly, especially since they just repaved this road. Concerning about that. That's really just a comment and something to think about probably for the future.
Okay, thank you. Andy Stricker.
Yeah, Andy Stricker from 11 Valley View. One of my concerns is that both exits from Valley View actually go to River Road, especially where Winooski has a bend. And I lived through Irene and Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, and I've seen how the waters can rage there, and if it erodes the bank and the road, we have no access to the neighborhood. So I would like to see a third access to Lang Farm or to the Cirque to provide access in case the other twos are, and they're also pretty close to each other, so that the other two accesses are blocked. Then another comment about the wildlife. On Valley View, we have the power line behind our properties, and I see a lot of wildlife there. So I don't think wildlife is being impacted, also given the fact that this is a medium density development or a medium density residential zone. So I think the wildlife still hangs around there. Okay. Those were my two comments.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments? I want to roll back to discussion on some of this soon. I'd like to get any questions or comments that folks have. I'm watching for the hands raised right now. I don't have the chat window open. Robert, you had a question. Robert Carpenter?
Sorry, it was unmuting. I just had a quick question. Who precisely would be in charge of this path to the Cirque? And my question would just be like, how clearly that has been downshifted in priority, but it sounds like other people are interested in this. I don't know if that would be the town or the developer, but I'd be interested to know where those plans are and how the people here and any other community members interested could get involved in making that a higher priority project. So I'm asking who owns that.
Okay. I'm gonna actually, I appreciate the question, but I'm gonna probably not address that one tonight. I think that's going to be outside of this. Ownership of that, I think, would be outside of this application for now. But we'll throw it all in there and we'll wrap some questions up pretty soon. So I'm going to take a last pass for folks that are on the phone. And I don't see any new calls on the chat.
I have recently just admitted someone in.
Okay.
Like a minute ago.
So, I mean, at this point, folks, we've had a lot of questions. I think we've had a lot of commentary. I'm gonna ask that you hold all questions or comments at this point, and I want to bring this back to the virtual table with the planning commissioners and the applicant and staff, and go over some of these questions. Paul, kicking it over to you. You've heard. I mean, I think we've heard a number of things. Concerns about traffic, concerns about the wildlife corridors, erosion. Traffic patterns, both monitoring and stop signs, potential options for additional sewer tie-ins that are outside of this project, questions about the lot size, future long-term road maintenance, things like that. You want to take a pass at providing some commentary back?
Sure, I can do that. In regards to the traffic monitoring, we have not been monitoring the volume of traffic. We would agree 100% with the gentleman who made that comment that with the COVID pandemic, certainly any counts taken out there now would not be indicative of what the true traffic counts are inside of the development. In terms of stop signs, changing the traffic patterns, we would likely propose a three-way stop at that Timberline Windridge intersection, but the final say on that is Public Works. They would be the ones that would decide what intersections were a three-way stop, a four-way stop, et cetera. So that's something we recommend. Public Works in the end has the say. We haven't really looked at the gravity sewer, which way we would go. It's possible we could extend the gravity sewer along Timberlane Drive. Whether or not you could connect to that would be between you and the town. The developer would not be proposing to connect you. I would imagine if we did extend it along Timberlane, the town would require us to leave a stub for all the properties along Timberlane that could connect. But again, that's really a Public Works question, not something that the developer would have control over. In terms of the lot sizes, there are a lot of irregular shaped lots. Some of them do look to be a lot deeper than they are in width. I would expect that in the end, we'll probably truncate a number of those lots and turn that into open space, particularly those deep lots along the back of Windridge Road. I expect there'll be a buffer between the existing houses. House styles have somewhat changed. Back in the old days, colonials were the popular things, and colonials, from one end to the other typically had a width of 70 to 80 feet. So you needed 100 to 110 feet of lot width to accommodate them. You don't see too many of those go up nowadays. Most of the lots are a little bit narrower and deeper. In the end, we'll pick a lot width that the developer is comfortable with. Obviously, he's trying to sell upscale single-family homes, and he needs to make sure the lots are wide enough to allow him to sell the type of house that he is currently selling in Section H. The question about the circle, not currently not being shown as a circle. The biggest factor that's changed this sketch plan since the master plan was
the plan about development.
Excuse me?
Keep going, Paul. I think that was just background noise.
So the biggest thing that's changed since the master plan was the Vermont Fish and Wildlife request that we establish that 43-acre conservation or wildlife buffer that's just above the red line shown on the sketch plan. That's a lot of area to lose, and originally on the master plan we had two parallel roads in that area. Because the reduction area, we're down to a single road. Also had a big impact on that loop, going a little bit further to the top of the page, which would be in roughly the northeast direction, and that's had an impact on the layout. That's probably the biggest reason why it's not currently a loop as it was on the master plan. And as the board knows, a master plan is just our best guess of what might happen in the future. It's no guarantee that it will build out as the master plan shows. What else did you have on the list, Dusty, that I missed?
Wildlife corridor, erosion, stop sign.
Yeah, stop sign is by Public Works. Erosion, they're talking about when you come off of Timber Lane in the Windridge intersection, that first section there where we have no lots, there certainly has been continual erosion of the logging road that goes there. The ground drops off quite steeply towards Alder Brook. Pinewood has made a number of attempts to repair that logging road as it's washed out. But essentially, it's something that we're going to have to work out with Public Works. Obviously, we're putting a storm drain system in there. We'll be directing the stormwater so that it doesn't erode that bank. And in the end, Dennis Lutz and the Public Works staff will have final say on what the design is on that corner.
And Paul, just to follow up on that, I know folks thought one of the things was long-term maintenance. When the road is built, it would be built to the specifications, Public Works specifications, correct? It would be.
That's correct.
Public Works would have to agree and sign off before it would ever taken over.
Yep, and then we provide a 3-year guarantee on the road. After a 3-year period, first of all, Public Works doesn't accept it until the final coat of pavement goes on, which is usually a year after we initially build it. Once the final coat goes on, there's a 3-year time period before Public Works will accept the road and take responsibility for it.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Commissioners, let's go around the horn. Let's kick this out again. Remembering that this is sketch. What I'd like to make sure we do is call out those items that we feel need to be fleshed out or worked out in more detail going forward to preliminary. Let's start with you, Ned.
I think that the traffic considerations. Yes, we'll go to Public Works. Some of the concerns people have about the volume, construction traffic will have to be addressed at the same time when they establish the in and out of that space, especially if they go in and do all the site work, all the site prep work all at once. I think we saw a lot of that on Upper Main Street here, as to what that entails and how long it really takes. The bridge or the crossing on the circuit, I think, is a great idea, but it falls beyond the scope of what this developer is, I think, able or has the capacity to do. Okay. I think they have enough to go forward with it.
All right. Thanks, Ned. John Mangan.
I guess similar to what Ned said, I do like the idea of the bridge too, but I don't know where that lies in terms of developer responsibility. And yeah, I think a lot of the other concerns on traffic we'll hear more about that as Public Works does their investigation into things. Those were probably the two biggest things that come to mind for me.
All right. Thank you. Tom, welcome back.
Thank you. On the bridge, I think the idea is an
going under the circ, and there is an underpass that exists that was built for the purpose. So it hopefully isn't as big a deal as a bridge is.
Okay. David.
I'm good, Dusty. I look at sketch as a way to kind of identify the concerns and make sure we're just kind of in general heading in the right direction. And, I think we're capturing the concerns, so I'm good.
And thank you. And I would echo what David said. I think everything that's been brought up, staff report already identified things to be worked out. I think the applicant is aware of some. I want to go back to Owiso.
Hi, I just wanted to underscore that if this project is reviewed as a PUD, public amenities are a really important provision of PUD, and so there should be some consideration of a trail or something that gives back to the community or creates community.
Okay. I guess that's also a question that's on the table for us as a commission. Do we, in general, do we support this going forward as a PUD? Kicking that out to commissioners.
I would. This is David. I would prefer to keep it consistent as a traditional if we could work with the setback requirements.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think the key question is what was noted in the staff comments about. So as long as those are addressed, they're probably good.
Just if I can ask, if they don't propose a PUD, would the planning commission entertain? I think I heard Paul mention waivers for some of the lots.
I think we'd have to look and see. Paul, back to you for a moment. If this was a conventional subdivision similar to the previous sections, what would you, if you had to call out and request for waivers, what are you envisioning?
Well, basically, it's the front yard setback we're most concerned with. I think under your current subdivision regs for a conventional single-family lot, there's a 40-foot front yard setback. Some of the lots in Section H, we went and got variances, I think, to reduce it to 25 feet. And that's essentially probably what we'd be looking for on certain lots, is to reduce or get a waiver of the front yard setback from 40 feet to 25 feet.
Okay.
And I believe the subdivision regulations do allow you to grant that waiver.
Justin, this is David. I mean, Paul made the point that the lot numbers are going to change. We haven't done stormwater. I mean, this is really preliminary.
Yep.
So, I mean, speaking as one commissioner, once I see a final plan that takes into account stormwater, final streets, I would definitely be open to waivers in the spirit of keeping with the, current look and feel of the neighborhood.
Okay. Thanks, David. The commissioners, you feel similarly to Dave's last statement, or do you want to offer an additional point of view?
This is
John.
Ned.
Ned?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we need more, and I can appreciate just looking at the map what they probably want to do. So yeah, let's go ahead and I think as a subdivision, I'd rather see it as a subdivision.
So for commissioners, or actually staff and Paul, from a procedural point of view, at this point it's being presented as a PUD. I think the commission is preferring it seems as if the commission is looking towards more of a subdivision with somebody's making a lot of noise in the background. If we could be careful of that. The commission is would be amenable to discussing waivers. Paul, from your position, if this came back in preliminary as a standard subdivision, is that feasible from your perspective?
Yes, it is. We're fine with that as long as you're willing to consider waivers.
Okay.
All right.
So commissioners, if unless we have new questions, I want to cycle back through the audience to see if there's anyone who has additional comments since the public hearing is still open. I guess commissioners are okay with that approach. So once again, back to the audience. And if anyone has any additional questions or comments they'd like to offer before we close the public hearing, this is the time. Anyone on the phone? Okay. So commissioners, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
This is David, so moved.
Second. Ned.
Moved by David, seconded by Ned. Closing the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is closed on this. Commissioners, what's your thought on this? Are we good to go to a motion?
I think so. John Mangan.
Okay. John, did you just volunteer to do it?
I wrote that down.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
right.
How do you want?
Let's see.
I would just remind you, in those two conditions I requested, it doesn't matter if they go or not because this is sketch, but they don't make sense at sketch. So that's my little reminder.
All right. Let me just.
So Sharon, that was removing condition 3 because it was repetitious of
one, really.
Of one, and then removing 4 because that comes at preliminary or final.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so I move that we approved the sketch subdivision public hearing proposal for the 49-unit single-family planned unit development, but with a preference that it be, sorry, what was the?
Conventional.
Conventional.
Subdivision.
Yep.
With the PC entertaining waivers. Did you want to add that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, with the Planning Commission entertaining waivers at 18 and 30 Timberlane Drive, the Indemnity Residential District.
With the conditions as proposed to be removed?
With the conditions as proposed, yeah.
So go ahead, David, since you're going to second this.
I'm going to second, and just a little friendly tweaking, John, just for clarity.
Absolutely.
Just that the Planning Commission will take into consideration waivers of front yard setbacks in keeping it with the character of the neighborhood.
I agree with that. So I would adopt that as part of the proposal.
I will put that as your finding on 191, line 191.
Perfect.
As well.
And that we're requesting that this come back as I think we should call out that we're looking for it to come back as a subdivision.
Right.
Because
yeah. John mentioned that.
And that we are accepting this review as sketch.
Thank you.
Is that okay is that accepted by David and John?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion on the motion as moved and adjusted? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just for the benefit, because I don't know how many of the 50 participants or so, or I guess we're down to 37 now. Can I just make a quick statement about this?
Yep.
For those folks that participated, I just want to remind you that your comments were heard by the applicant and the commission, and just because they didn't work themselves into this specific conditions of this application, know that those were captured and they'll come back on preliminary and final. So it's important you stay engaged with the process, and just because we didn't tackle each of them individually, just know they were captured. I think it's important. So thank you for participating.
Yeah. Very good point, David. Thank you. And everyone who was engaged with this, it helps. It helps make these applications better. So thank you again. With that, we are now moving on to the third item on our agenda, which is the site plan amendment public hearing for Euro West Retail Partners. This is a proposal to reduce interactive and immersive arts building addition from 22,500 square feet to 20,500 square feet and other site improvements at 21 Essex Way. Sharon and Oiso, who will be presenting on this for this item?
So Sharon Kelly will be. I don't have much to say. As noted, this is an amendment to the previous approval by reducing the building size and utilizing more space within the existing building. The changes include removal of the rooftop diner, a bump out of the addition towards Commonwealth Avenue, addition of several outdoor courtyards and seating areas, removal of parking along Commonwealth Avenue, and more extensive changes to the landscaping. The proposal meets all the requirements of the zoning regulations as well as the intent of the standards of business design control. A height waiver was granted at site plan review for this particular use, which was noted in the approval and in the architectural plans. I don't have that number of what the waiver was specifically. The engineer might be able to call those numbers out should you need them. During the application review, the building was moved further away from the sidewalk to allow for a better street connectivity from Bo's property and to allow for wider sidewalks. In part, Public Works was required that road be shifted a bit. All staff departments are satisfied with the improvements, and that's all I have.
Okay. I would like to, as soon as I find it, thank you, Sharon. I want to introduce comments provided by John Alden, who was a sitting planning commissioner for the first round of the application and is an alternate on the commission. And he provided some commentary back, and I cannot find it right now.
Dina can bring that up.
Yeah, it'll just take me a minute here.
Oh, I got it.
Got it? Okay.
But you can still bring it up if you'd like.
Okay.
John indicated that he's taking the night off. He didn't have any big concerns about the revised plans. It will be a lot easier to build. I'm going to now go verbatim at this point. Will be a lot easier to build without all of those odd connections to the other part of the existing building. Shortens the length of that big wall facing the back too. On the entry side, they have now created a nice courtyard to handle the outdoor activities planned. Will be more protected and inviting than running it along the roadway as was the case before. More separation from vehicle traffic is good. The landscape plan with walkways, benches, and plantings looks good. Only concern is the increased traffic once Commonwealth is completed. This will be a major point of entry to the Essex experience from the north. I would want to be sure that we have planned for that level of traffic. And that was from John Alden earlier today. So moving on to commissioners, any questions for Sharon or Oiso on the application?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
Moving on.
None.
You guys did that in good sequence, virtually sequence. Who's presenting for the applicant on this?
Paul O'Leary with O'Leary Burke will start. With me is Alex and Catherine from Freeman French Freeman and Robert and Teresa, the owners of the project, and Peter Edelman.
Paul, okay. Paul, hang on for a minute. Did anybody that will be speaking to this come in post the swearing in? And Sharon, does it? Okay. If you didn't, just please announce yourself beforehand and we'll make sure that we capture that. Go ahead, Paul. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's good to be back. It's good to be moving this project forward. I would comment that Darren did a great job on the staff notes, very thorough, captured pretty much all of the proposed changes to the building. I am pleased to announce that we have applied for all our state permits, both our state wastewater permit and our Act 250 permit, which is a big step for the project and moving this along. The French Freeman team, Peter Edelman and Robert and Teresa have been working hard to get a budget that works for the project. And that's the biggest reason we're back to see you tonight, is trying to get the budget reasonable has necessitated some changes in the building size and the way the building interfaces with the existing building. So they have made those changes. We think we're in a good spot. And so we're back with some relatively minor changes compared to what was presented the first time. I think the biggest addition to the plans that you've seen today is the landscape plan sheet L100. We did hire TJ Boyle and Associates to look at the streetscape and to provide some of the courtyard experiences that you see on the plan, particularly the courtyard area that's at the corner of the service road and the future Commonwealth extension, and then again the bigger courtyard that's in the area, roughly in the area where the diner was. We are kind of sad to see the diner go, but unfortunately just didn't work out within our budget at this point in time. And I think anyone from the team will gladly answer any questions that the board might have. Okay. We are fine with the staff notes as written and with the proposed conditions as written.
Excellent. Commissioners, questions for staff or applicant? John
Mangan, I have none. I would just agree. It's sad to see the diner go, but I get it. So no questions.
Ned.
No, I think they've tweaked it nicely. Let's keep it going.
Excellent. Tom.
No, I do like that little courtyard.
Great. Dave?
No, I'm good. I think the changes all make sense. Thank you.
Yep. And I concur. I'd expressed concerns about traffic before, and I still see concerns with traffic, but I don't have a concern with the changes as proposed. With that, I believe that this is a public hearing. I'm trying to find my agenda to make sure, and it is. I would look for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing.
Don't leave him hanging, guys.
I'll second that, John Mangan.
Moved by Tom, seconded by John. Ned was in there somewhere, but all those in favor of opening the public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Public hearing is open. If anyone in the audience, either on the meeting or on the phone, would like to raise questions or offer comment, please let us know. I'm not hearing a lot. Anything in the chat window?
I can't stay completely quiet. Peter Edelman. I just want to.
Wait a minute. Where's the mute button?
There. You got me.
Go ahead, Peter.
All right. I just want to thank everybody on this really collaborative effort, and it's a great way to proceed on the project to get positive and negatives and work out a solution that is going to hopefully work for everybody. So I appreciate the inputs. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, I don't see any raised hands. I haven't heard anybody, and I didn't see anything in the chat window. So I'm trying to cover all the bases here. It looks like we still have three phone numbers engaged. All right. I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Ned, seconded by Tom. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Public hearing is closed. Commissioners, I'm not hearing really much discussion on this. Is there anything that anybody wants to bring up, or somebody prepared to jump on a motion? Tom.
I move we approve the staff report as written.
I'll second that, John Mangan.
It's a nice easy lob.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented by Tom, seconded by John, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Dusty?
Yes.
It's fine that this is not officially on the record, but I just wanted to make the comment that the applicant worked really well with us and was responsive, and we really appreciate the changes that they've brought to the table. I think it's made the project a lot richer and fitting with the community. And as far as traffic goes, we can work out traffic calming measures later on, and I think that traffic is not going to be a deterrent.
Good. Thanks, Luiso. And I don't mean to miss you. If you had your hand up, I apologize.
Not a problem.
Okay, folks, we are done with those. We now need to move to the minutes from 8:13.
I move approval.
A second.
Moved by David, seconded by John. Does anyone have commentary on any page, any item? Do they want to call out anything? Otherwise, I'm going to go right to the... Okay, hearing no offers of changes. All those in favor of the minutes as written, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes pass 5-0. Other business. Staff.
That would be me. So we placed on your in your packet the notice of Jericho amendments that they're required to submit to abutting towns. Nothing in there affects Essex, so it's more of an informational to you, the usual that we do. The next thing is notification of an unspecified use. We have an application for a bed and breakfast and Airbnb. They want to have the option of both. As you know, it's an unspecified use, which requires that I inform you, and you may submit written or oral comments to it. I know that your past comments have been, you don't like the idea that we're doing it without having a specific reg, and it is on our work list to add that to it. But for now, this is what it is. So I would ask if any of you have any comments that you want me to pass along to the zoning board, who meets September 3rd.
This is David. Can I jump in on this?
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of experience with the Airbnbs. I mean, the bed and breakfast side and where that is in our regs, but the Airbnb thing is growing, and what I'm seeing in parts of Vermont and other areas of the country are a lot of HOAs and subdivisions are amending their declarations and bylaws to have minimum occupancy requirements of 30 days or more to try to stop Airbnbs. And again, I'm just pointing this out. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but a lot of it's because of issues some associations are having with short-term rentals, high turnover, partying, traffic. So there's a lot of concerns just nationally that are happening. And I said this the last time we were kind of spot approving Airbnbs. I have no issue with this application or the concept. I think, quaint, rooms for rent in our remote areas is kind of a cool thing. But I think we need to have a larger discussion at some point about some of the trends and how to regulate this on a more permanent basis, because it's not going away, it's getting more prolific.
I agree, and I've heard whispers that the state is making some move as well, but I will find more out about that so that I can report back to you on it.
One of the state's major concerns, especially from the travel and tourism section, is to make sure, and we would absolutely want to put a condition on this approval if you did approve it, is to make sure that the meals and rooms filings are happening, because when Airbnb first came out, that wasn't the case. The state has come down pretty hard on that, but I think a condition that reminds applicants that they're responsible for collecting meals and rooms is important.
Yes, and that's the only condition that is placed on these type applications with the zoning board per their instruction. So, and it's very generic, to seek out any state approval that is required. So.
Well, right. But there's two. There's the meals and rooms, right? And then the other concern as a real estate broker that I have is Vermont Division of Fire Safety. Anytime you have what now becomes a commercial residential building, it's subject to the Division of Fire Safety for their regulations, and a lot of homeowners don't realize that.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I try to put that in our findings, and we have that discussion at the table. So you're right, though, it's on our list, and hopefully we'll be massaging those regulations so that we can create something. Right now, all we have for bed and breakfast is a definition, which does nothing. So
is it fair to say, or safe? Not fair, not safe. Is it accurate to say that we really don't have any feet in this particular game yet? I mean, as the planning commission.
Yes, that is accurate. Mm-hmm. The zoning board barely wants to have their feet in it.
So I don't know what we would say to them other than don't set a precedent.
I will just tell them that you've acknowledged receipt of the proposal, and maybe I'll relay Dave's comments about being rural and quaint.
I think you ought to invite him to the meeting.
I'm sure David wants to be in his quaint camp up in St. Albans.
He's got a camp in St. Albans now, too?
Or wherever he is. I don't know where.
I'm sitting here in Swanton right now.
Nice.
Okay. We have anything else we need to cover?
This is Ned. I've got something I'd just like to quickly bring up to people, okay?
Please.
I promise I won't take more than 5 minutes. It came to my attention that the next zoning board adjustment meeting over on Susie Wilson, a developer is planning to convert a motel there to apartments. And fortunately or unfortunately, during all this COVID-19, my inbox and my mail gets flooded with ways to design to deal with COVID and other viruses in the future. And when you look at a typical, and we haven't seen, and I'll preface this by saying I haven't seen any plans for how they plan to develop apartments out of these motel rooms and add some apartments. So I don't know what they look like. But if I look at the typical motel and look at the corridor widths and all, just simply maintaining safe spacing, walking around these buildings is next to impossible. Then you deal with laundry rooms, mail rooms, and how do you keep these clean and disinfected? And there are no regulations, unfortunately, to deal with this, but it's something that I think that we as the town should look at very carefully in our regulations for multifamily dwellings, and the state should. There's so many things that come to mind. They have common areas with air handlers. Who maintains the air handlers? Who's responsible, especially in an apartment setting, for regularly cleaning the filters, if the filters that are in the unit are adequate to maintain the levels of air quality we need today. These things just, they sort of trouble me, and I get a little bit frustrated when people will say, well, it's the state code. And I guess the question I toss out to the professional staff is, well, maybe we should reach out to the state health department, and I know they're busy, and the building code people, and see what we may need to do to be able to protect ourselves in the future for these things. That's all. There is a good, I'll add, there is a good piece that I did send to always Sharon and Darren from the American Institute of Architects, and I would ask them to send it to all the commissioners to read, because it's pretty eye-opening on how you lay out new apartments, and that's really what we're doing here. It's the same as if you go into an existing building and start to modify it, you automatically fall under all the new regulations for American disability. And I think I treat this as in the same way.
And I will forward that along as well as to the zoning board.
Okay, thank you. You'll probably hear from me because I will probably try to join in with the zoning board meeting. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
All right, that's it, guys. It's just something to think about.
That's all I have.
I lost them all. Not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tom up, yeah. In your honor, maybe now we'll pass the Essex Town Center plan too.
Oh boy.
We put that on hold for the year you were gone.
I can understand that. Yeah.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done.
Tom,
Thanks,
nice to have you back.
Nice to see you, Tom.
Good night, everyone. Nice to meet you, Tom. Or nice
Thanks,
to see you.
Luiso.
See you soon.
Commissioners, before you disappear, remember that we do have an alternate. So John Alden is not necessarily, gone. So if people need to or want to be off, it would be good if we can give him a heads up and stuff like that, so we can hopefully keep him engaged and have full
Great.
commission. Sounds good. So that was very smooth tonight. Everybody, thank you.